So I'm going to give you all a bit of a rundown on this delightful 2003 Subaru Forester. Pretty common car, and I think I've experienced most of the Achilles heels of this particular model, and I've managed to work through them all at home and saved a fair bit of money. So I'll run through the main issues that I've found this car, and this is collaborated on various forums and YouTube. But the main thing that happens with these, which is a real issue, is that at a bit over 200,000 kilometers, their head gaskets start leaking, and the oil gets onto the exhaust manifold, just with the design that they are, and of course it smells. So you're sitting at traffic lights with the kid in the back seat, and it smells like your car's on fire. So I managed to replace those myself, and it's not easy given the configuration of the vehicle with this the east-west sort of setup, or the horizontally opposed setup there. So your head gaskets are down yonder and there, and your rocker cover gaskets are up here, rather than your usual, 4 cylinders along the top where you just pop the top off and replace one gasket. You got to replace the two. Now I did it with the engine in there, so all this stuff came off, everything came out, including your battery, all the water stuff, just so you could get access down here. And I wouldn't recommend it. Every bolt you tighten there, you've got to go from the top and get underneath the car and do it again, and it would have been much easier just to take the whole engine out and replace it that way. So that was probably a 2 to 3 day exercise. Put the car up on ramps, got on you can see here where I've put white out to know which plugs go where. And when I had it out, I took the opportunity to put the timing belt in as well. You may as well, because you take everything apart, and there's plenty of online forums and YouTube videos of people doing that. But yeah, don't choose doing it in the car way. That's my advice. Another thing that happens to these a lot, and I've seen a lot of different ways of the people have managed this, is you get wind noise through here. That develops over time, and I've seen a number of different methods. I'll just wind the window down here. A number of different methods of dealing it, but the core issue of why it happens is this. There's two bits of metal. It's almost structural in nature. There's two bits of metal coming up the side. It's hidden in under these rubbers here, but they must part over time with vibrations in the window or whatever. And people have done things like pack rubber inside here and pack rubber in behind here to try and push this out. That's not the issue. The issue is these bits of metal come out. So what you got to do is pop this cover off, and you can access some screws in there and get this mirror off, and then you just get a G-clamp and push it back together, so these rubber flaps here are touching again. In my case, this was this rubber was a good 5 mil out, and when you're driving down the highway, just the Venturian effect, and there's a big cavity in under here, would suck, the air would be rushing past here, and it'd suck air it must suck it through the door and out this gap, and it'd do it at quite a rate, and that's where your noise was. And it's quite annoying just when you get to highway speed, dealing with that. So just get a G-clamp, push it back together, and Bob's your father's brother. Another thing that happens is that, and you'll see here, the dash caught fire, and it happened in behind this switch here, and you might see some remnants down in here where a couple of connectors caught fire. Now the root cause of that, I think, is a combination in that a spider decided to take up residence down here in this blower motor. You can see there I've had to replace this connector just with a couple of those up in there. So a huntsman spider got down in this sort of hose here, which must be a bit of a ventilation duct for the actual blower motor. He got in there, so I think that probably caused a bit more current draw because his guts and stuff might have shorted it out. And I think in conjunction with that, if you look, where is it? That thing there. And that's called a blower motor resistor. And what it does, at setting number 4, that blower motor gets 12 volts. And it runs at full speed. At setting number 2, for instance, that blower motor resistor cuts, I assume that cuts the voltage in half and burns it off as heat through a resistor in the ventilation duct. So that's what slows your speed down. So it's not a variable speed motor. You just got a resistor which takes the energy away and it burns it off into your ventilation system. Now that resistor, they wear out just with heating and cooling. The bits of solder must just fatigue. And anyway, the only setting that worked was number 4 because the resistor didn't have to come to play at that setting. So I just got the resistor out and managed to super glue a couple of connections back together, and then that worked. So I think because of the spider and because of the failed resistor, it was always on setting 4. It was drawing more current than usual. Why the fuse didn't deal with it, I'm not sure, and that caused a bit of a fire. So anyway, that's all fixed. Now another problem with these things, these Foresters, they get very, very rattly in the suspension. And it's to do with these things. Now I think they're called sway bar connectors or sway bar links. Anyway, these are obviously, very, very flogged out, and it was causing really annoying knocking. Every single undulation in the road would just create a clunk, 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 clunk everywhere you went. Every speed hump, clunk, clunk, So these are quite a cheap item. I don't know, probably 20-30 bucks each, maybe. And you can whip them out in 10 minutes and replace them. You can see them here. You just put an Allen key in the end of it, and I think that's a 14mm nut. I think these are 17mm there, and you just replace them. That's taken away that knocking. I remember a few years ago, I was like, oh, something's up with this car. To a suspension place, and can you fix it? Oh, it'd be 2,000 bucks. Anyway, there you go, 80 bucks, and all's fixed. Another thing I've done is that these, over time, the plastic gets damaged by UV and it all gets opaque and just looks really dodgy, not unlike my the bumper here. But all I've done is just buff that off with a with a felt polishing disc on an angle grinder and a bit of cutting compound, and they come up like new. So there's another $100 or $200 saved. Look, everything else you can do with these is pretty straightforward, changing the oil and that sort of stuff. And they're the main things that I found with the Subaru Forester.